As someone who grew up in the same town, Casper, went to the same high school, enjoyed the same wide open spaces, I can't think of anybody who better embodied Wyoming values than Dick Cheney. He was comfortable in the saddle on horseback. He judged people by what they accomplished and what they stood for. He loved the state where he grew up and met Lynne. And Wyoming loved him back, electing him 6 times to the House of Representatives. He enjoyed the solitude of the Wyoming wilderness, too, and was an expert at finding the best places to deploy a fly rod. In fact, if you wanted his attention in the office and you saw that the Orvis catalog was open on his desk, you knew to come back some other time. For my 50th birthday, he offered to let me come with him for a day's fly fishing in the Tetons. I told him that the best gift I could give in return was to respectfully decline because I'm no fisherman, and I knew that if I spoke even 10 words all day, he would say I talk too much. When I was his press secretary, I once wrote a news release that contained the word bureaucrat. He crossed it out and substituted federal official. As the son of a man who worked for the Agriculture Department, he respected people who chose to serve their country. Many Americans got their first look at Dick Cheney during the Gulf War, Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. My office at the Pentagon was the place where letters made their first stop, and one in particular stands out in my memory. A woman in Indiana wrote to say this: "During these difficult times for our country, it is reassuring to turn on the television and see someone in charge of our military who is plain speaking, resolute, and strong." And then she added, "I find these qualities to be very attractive. I'm not sure whether you're married, but if you're ever in Indianapolis, you can look me up." I showed this letter to Secretary Cheney, and he took it home to brag about it. Shortly after Dick Cheney became Secretary of Defense, one of our senior policy officials had a request for me as the Pentagon spokesman. A New York Times reporter wanted to know more about a new effort by the George H.W. Bush administration to reach a nuclear weapons agreement with the Soviet Union. The official sought permission to give the Times some background. I relayed the request to Secretary Cheney, who gave his okay, but he said, "Make absolutely sure our guy talks it over with the White House first to get a clear idea of what he can say." The following Sunday morning, the paper revealed that the president would soon propose a new negotiating tactic. The problem was that the president planned to reveal that strategy in a speech on Monday, and he was none too pleased to see it spelled out beforehand. I received a call at home on Sunday informing me that this official and I were to report to Secretary Cheney's office first thing Monday morning. We walked in and sat down, braced for the worst. The secretary said, "I've got some good news and some bad news. Which do you want first?" So I asked for the bad news. He looked at us sternly and he said, "The bad news is that the President of the United States is very angry with you both." And then I asked for the good news and he said, "I only have to fire one of you." I could tell he was joking. I'm not sure the senior official realized it. And then Secretary Cheney said, "It's okay, guys. I told the president it was my idea." He could have told President Bush that it was our fault, but he took the blame and saved us from ourselves. When the boss that you serve cleans up after your mistakes, you can bet that inspires loyalty. And Dick Cheney demonstrated that kind of decency and concern for all the people who served him during his more than 40 years in public life. In 1991, a magazine planned to run a story outing me. I knew it was coming, so I went up to his office and offered to resign. He wouldn't hear of it. And for several days after that article appeared, he would call me on the direct line to my desk at the Pentagon to ask how I was doing and to tell me to get on with the job. Washington attracts ambitious people driven by a desire to serve their country. But many of those who become big names acquire staffers and then cast them aside as they rise in stature. Not Dick Cheney. Throughout his life, on his steady rise through the corridors of power, his circle of friends kept growing. He did not abandon those who helped him along the way. And when George W. Bush chose him to be the vice presidential candidate in 2000, their first campaign stop together was Casper, a demonstration of Dick's loyalty to his home state. I don't think he was worried about locking up Wyoming's 3 electoral votes. Those of us fortunate to work for him knew that he had a sly sense of humor. He loved to tell a story about attending a political event when he ran for re-election as Wyoming's congressman. He said he walked up to one old rancher, stuck out his hand and said, "I'm Dick Cheney, I'm running for Congress, and I'd like to have your vote." And the rancher replied, "You got it. That guy we got in there now is no damn good." In my 7 years of working for him in the Congress and at the Pentagon, I seldom came away from a meeting with him without thinking that I'd learned something about politics and government. Lynne captured that experience perfectly when she introduced him at the 2000 Republican Convention. Here's what she said: "Conversations with Dick have a way of taking unexpected turns. Problems get redefined, and you find yourself thinking about things in new ways." And she added, "I cannot imagine the discussion that would not benefit from his presence." Dick Cheney was a good and decent man. He loved his family and his home state. His highest aspiration was serving the country, and I'm so lucky and so deeply grateful that I was along for part of that ride.